Welcome, everyone. Good to have you joining us today for another one of our Social Security webinars. Uh, I am Ken Barron, and joining me today is Mark Hendelson, and we will be uh, your host for this webinar. And I'm still working with some of the slides. Just bear with me.
And while Ken is doing that, I'm gonna pipe in and okay, we've got the slides moving.
We
Go ahead,
got the
Ken.
slides moving. That's right. So we want to thank you on behalf of our foundation advisory team for joining us for some of these sessions. Uh, it- there's a lot of important information we want to share with you. This one we thought would be appropriate to start the year out with. It is about the earnings test, and we're going to talk a little more into depth about what people are able to earn and still collect Social Security. So at the end of the presentation, we will probably be sending everyone who's attending an email. And if you don't receive it within a few days or so, I would recommend maybe you send us or include in the chat your email address because we'd like to share the PowerPoint slides with you. One of the reasons being is that some of these slides will have a lot of information on it, okay? There's just a lot of written stuff, but I just couldn't see not putting some of this information on there because it was necessary to make a point about the earnings and how you can work and still collect Social Security. So with that said, let's see what we can do for you as far as educate everyone about being able to collect Social Security and still be employed. So basically, what we're talking today is about your age, employment, and receiving benefits. If you were born 1960 on, your full retirement age is as of age 67. If you are employed and your full retirement age, which we refer to as FRA, you may keep all your benefits no matter how much you earn, starting with the month of your FRA. We're going to cover this a little more. If you're younger than your full retirement age, then there is an income limit, and Social Security sets these every year as they change every calendar year. First of the year, we have a new amount. It's usually announced towards the end of the year. So Social Security refers to this income limit, okay, as the annual earnings test or the AET, and it does apply to everyone. Now, it applies to retirees. It applies to, as we put on here, auxiliaries. So it could be like children who may be employed. It happens sometimes. It's rare they earn up to the limit. We talk about spouses and widows. This is the earnings test applies to all these people who receive Social Security. What we're talking about today, and I had that on one of the prior slides, is that this does not refer to people on disability. Okay. People on disability have a different earnings test that they go through. And that is another animal all by itself. All right. So whatever we're talking about today does not apply to people who are receiving disability benefits from Social Security. Okay. So for 2025, the new annual earnings limit is up to $23,400. We are talking calendar year, folks. Okay, don't forget this is not it doesn't go like some of the federal or state time frames. We are looking at a January through December time frame. So $23,400 is an amount for anyone who is completely under their FRA, their full retirement age for 2025. For anyone who will be turning FRA during the current year, they're allowed to earn the annual limit being 62,160, and that's for just the months before their FRA. Okay, we're going to go into some further explanations about this. So, if you are under full retirement age, and the limit this year is 23,400, and you do expect to earn over that, then you have to consider whether it's worthwhile applying for retirement benefits or not, depending how much you're going to earn. Because for every $2 of income that you earn over that every $2 over the 23,400, you lose $1 of your Social Security check. So Social Security holds upfront, they're supposed to at least, $1 for every $2 you go over the 23,400. If you're reaching full retirement age this year, then Social Security will withhold $1 for every $3 if you earn over that 62,160. But that's just for the months prior to turning full retirement age. So keep that in mind. That's a lot of income for a lot of people to be able to earn before they turn full retirement age. And again, it all depends on a person's birthday. So what's the best way to really explain this? Let me tell you, examples, okay? It's basic examples. So this is wordy. There's a lot of stuff on here. And please don't forget, if you want copies of these after we're done the webinar, please ask us. Send us the email, send us the chat, whatever, your information to chat. And we may very well also include it as a link later on if we do send you another email, just basically thanking you for joining us. So here's a scenario of how the annual earnings test worked for someone who's under their full retirement age this year in 2025. So the scenario goes like this. So this person applied for their Social Security before they turned full retirement age. So they're not getting 100% of their benefit. So basically what I did is I just took this person is going to get $2,000 a month because they applied early. Their full benefit was probably a lot higher than that. But for this person right now, we're saying, okay, so you applied at age 65 or 66, whatever the age is, your benefit is reduced to 2,000. All right, so um, the person asked, okay, let's start these benefits effective with the month of January, because I'm past 62. They estimate their income for this year in gross wages to be 43,400. So right away, we know it's over the Social Security earnings test of 23,400. So the scenario goes like this. So Social Security looks at their estimated income, subtracts what they're allowed, 23,400, and this is just to determine, okay, if Social Security can pay benefits out. They're over the limit by 20,000. So Social Security says we're going to hold $1 for every two of those dollars. So $10,000 of Social Security benefits will be held back right up front before anything is paid out by Social Security. And the way this works out, the result, as the bottom statement goes, $10,000 needs to be held back at $2,000 a month, folks. It's going to take 5 months of $2,000 withholdings to complete that 10,000. So Social Security would not pay the individual checks for January through May. Starting with the month of June, the person is now payable. So Social Security starts up the checks for the month of June, which arrives in July after the month is over. As we go on, if this presents other questions about other things that you may have encountered, folks, please send us your questions. We'd love to tackle those questions for you. Now, let's look at a scenario for a person who is going to be turning their full retirement age this year. It's completely different for those who reach full retirement age during the course of the year. let's say this person, their monthly Social Security check is $3,500, and that's as of they'll turn 67 in June of 2025, their month of fraud. So they've held back applying for benefits up until now. But the retirement application, on the retirement application, they chose to start their benefits up with January. So they're accepting a small reduction in their benefits by starting earlier than their fraud. So Social Security computes their benefit. Okay, if they wait till July, they get 3,500. By starting 6 months early, they're going to get 3,380. That's the reduction amount. Okay, so we're looking at 6 months prior to their full retirement age, potential paying them out. So this person on their application says, I'm going to earn $72,000 for the entire year, being 62,160 earnings test because it's their full retirement age year. We have to look at, Social Security has to look at, okay, are they going to be over the limit? Are they going to be under the limit? So 72,000 divided by 12 basically comes out to a prorated amount of about $6,000 of gross income per month. Give or take a few bucks here or there. Okay. But the person's countable annual earnings test amount, just a minute here. So the person's countable annual earnings test income is only the first 6 months because they turn full retirement age as of July. We don't count. Social Security doesn't count the income then. So for the first 6 months of the year, they're going to earn $36,000, the prorated amount, which is under that 62,160. All right, you see where I'm going with that. So here we go. In the blue boxes, number one, annual earnings, they estimate is 72,000. The max amount allowed is 62,160 set by Social Security. So here again, since they are working the whole year, we're going to prorate those 6 months at $6,000. What's going to happen is that this person is going to qualify to receive all 12 months of their Social Security checks. Okay. So Social Security determines all checks are payable at the rate of 3380, resulting in the person earning 72,000 as well as collecting $40,560 worth of checks, the whole year's worth. Not a bad deal. Not a bad deal for someone who is turning full retirement age. And here again, this can vary based on the month that you turn full retirement age. Okay. So at this point, I am going to turn things over to my buddy here, Mark. Mark, can you tell us a little bit about this whole special one-time monthly rule?
I will gladly do it. Thank you, Ken. Great
Thank
job.
you.
Before I start delving into the monthly earnings test, I want to piggyback on a couple of topics that Ken has already mentioned. Number one, I want to define what earnings mean. When we talk about an earnings limitation, we're talking about gross wages and net earnings from self-employment. We're not talking about pensions or annuities or investment income. We're talking about earnings that you generate putting on your shoes in the morning and heading off to work for wages or self-employment. So it's gross wages and net self-employment. Second point I want to make a comment on is when we're talking about providing estimates to Social Security of what you think you will make in earnings for that year or for the months prior to your FRA, it's very important you give a high estimate. Social Security is going to base their payments off of what you estimate. If you underestimate, payments will be released to you because Social Security will not have held up enough benefits. Social Security will release to you too much in payments, and that will cause an overpayment. We always want to avoid overpayments. So if you think you're going to make anywhere between 35 and 40,000, tell Social Security 40,000. They'll hold up the appropriate number of checks based on your estimate. And if you earn 35,000, we'll owe you some payments back. But if you tell Social Security you're going to make 35,000 and you actually make 40,000, you'll be overpaid because Social Security will not have held up enough of your benefits. So it's really critical when you're providing information to Social Security regarding your estimated earnings to give it on the high side. The math will all work out at the end. If you will get back, if you tell them a higher number and you earn less, Social Security, of course, will refund any benefits that were withheld in excess of what you actually earned. But if you tell them a low estimate and you exceed it, you will have been issued too much in the way of payments, and a refund will be due Social Security from you. It'll represent an overpayment. Let me now touch base on a very important topic. So we've talked about the AET, the annual earnings test. We're going to talk about a second earnings test called the monthly earnings test. Sometimes people who retire mid-year have already earned more than the AET. That's why Social Security has a special rule called the monthly earnings test, or MET, and it applies one time, usually the first year an individual begins collecting benefits. And how the MET works is any month you earn less than the monthly level, you will be due a benefit checks. No matter what you make for the year, any month you're under the monthly level of earnings, you'll be due a payment. So if you make $1 million from January to June, well, based on that amount, we only applied the annual earnings test, you wouldn't be getting any benefits. But if you make that large sum of money and then retire at the end of June, and beginning in July, you work part-time under the limit, or you don't work at all, you will be due payments July through December. I like to call this the teacher's rule. Most educators retire at the end of the school term, June, July, some in May, and they may make 30 or 40,000 for that 5 or 6 or 7 month period. They're over the limit. Well, it's not fair to penalize them for their earnings that they made prior to retirement. So we have this special rule that says make what you want up until retirement. We will pay you benefits beginning your first month of retirement, even though you might have exceeded the earnings limitation from those first months. Let's talk about a scenario of this monthly earnings test. John applies for his Social Security benefits to begin at age 62. He turns 62 June 20th. Under Social Security rules, you've got to be born on the first or second day of the month to qualify for the month you turn 62. Since John was born June 20th, his first month of entitlement is the month of July, because that's the first month. He's 62 the entire month. John is still employed, estimating that he's going to make $90,000 up until his retirement. He'll have no earnings after that date. Well, based on the annual earnings test, he would lose likely all of those benefits from July to December. But because of the monthly earnings test, Social Security will be able to pay him from July to December because he's not working, or if working, earning less than the monthly level of $1,950. Social Security will look at both the annual and monthly earnings tests and assess what's going to give an individual the most payment. So even though John is over the $23,400 in gross wages and net self-employment from those 6 months of work, he will get his benefits because of this one-time rule called the monthly earnings test. It'll allow his eligibility, his payment, to begin in July and carry through December. One important part of the monthly earnings test is that if you go over the monthly limit by even $1, you lose that entire month's benefit check. It's not like the 1 for 2 or the 1 for 3 rules that apply with the annual earnings test. So to understand that monthly earnings test, it's important that you keep your earnings under the limit. If you exceed it by even $1, you're not due a check. Income that counts for annual earnings test purposes. So if you're self-employed, the income counts when you receive it, not when you earn it. If you work for an employer, your wages count towards Social Security's earnings limit, and it's gross wages. With self-employment, it's net. Social Security, I mentioned this earlier, doesn't count income such as government benefits, investment, earnings, interest, pensions, annuities, and capital gains. They do count an employee's contribution to a pension or retirement plan if the contribution amount is included in the employee's gross wages. So when we're looking at these limits, it's gross wages and net self-employment. If you work for wages, income counts when it's earned, not when it's paid. That's different than self-employment. If you have income that you earned in a current year, but the payment was made in the following year, it shouldn't be counted as earnings for the year you receive it. A couple examples are accumulated sick leave or vacation pay and bonuses. One last point about this. It's important to understand that Social Security will credit your earnings record based on what you pay FICA taxes on. So for wages, it's gross wages. For self-employment, it's net self-employment. There are many self-employed individuals who are shocked when they see the size of their Social Security benefits being much lower than they expect. And the reason for that is they anticipate getting credit for their earnings prior to deductions. But that's not the case. With self-employment, you pay FICA taxes based on your net income. So if you work as a realtor and you make $50,000, you're self-employed as a realtor, you make $50,000 in gross income as a realtor, but you take $30,000 from expenses, only $20,000 will be credited to your earnings record because that's what you pay FICA taxes on. The adjustment of the reduction factor, also known as ARF. If a person's benefits were withheld because of the annual or monthly earnings tests, once they attain their FRA, their benefits will be adjusted upward. The ARF takes into account all the months of benefits that were withheld since applying for benefits because of the annual earnings test. An ARF or recalculation doesn't happen until you attain your FRA, and it usually occurs, the following year. Once the year is closed and we see what months were paid to you or due you in benefits, that's when you would see that ARF calculation. Let's go over a scenario. In 2025, a person applies for their Social Security retirement benefits at age 62. Social Security determines their FRA amount to be $1,235 a month. Since they're taking benefits at 62, their benefit is reduced about 30% to around $910 a month. After starting their benefits, the individual returns to part-time work. And from 62 to their FRA, they had 12 months where they lost benefits. So the year after their FRA, Social Security will recalculate their benefit to remove those 12 months of deduction. So instead of having a 30% reduction, their benefit will be recalculated and that reduction will be lower, and their benefits will go up from $910 to $975. Of course, these benefit amounts would be subject to cost of living adjustments. And since this ARF is being done after the FRA, they will do this retroactive increase effective with the month they turned their FRA. You should always report changes in your estimate to Social Security. If you give a high estimate and you actually make less, as I mentioned earlier, you'll get an adjustment. But what's really, really important is if you give an estimate that's low and you see you're going to exceed it, call Social Security up and give them the higher estimate so they can hold up the appropriate number of checks based on your higher estimate. We want to avoid overpayments at all costs. If you are overpaid due to the annual earnings test or the monthly earnings test, that overpayment will not be waived. It's your responsibility to understand clearly your reporting responsibilities to Social Security. And if you cause an overpayment, that must be refunded in full to Social Security. To reach Social Security, call them at 1-800-772-1213. I recommend when I speak to individuals, try to call at 8 a.m. in the morning. They're open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. Try to call them at 8 a.m. in the morning before the West Coast people kick in. That usually gets you quicker to a representative. You cannot walk into Social Security and expect to get service without an appointment. So if you want to deal with somebody in person at Social Security, call that 800 number and schedule a walk-in appointment with your local office if you have any questions or you need to report changes. We here at AMAC love helping our members and non-members navigate through this complex web of Social Security rules and regulations. Ken and myself, we've got over 70 years working with the agencies. We spend most of our time putting together these emails, these webinars, and responding to emails, and we'd love to hear from anybody. And you can contact us as you see our contact information on this slide. I want to thank everybody for attending today. We will have another webinar in February and moving forward. Let us know the topics you'd like us to share information with you about. Always love to hear from individuals about topics of interest that you'd like us to touch base on and help educate you. If you have any follow-up questions, please be in touch with us. For now, I thank you for attending this webinar. You guys have a great day and stay in touch. Thank you.